and Jay. I'm your co-host, DJ McCatherine, joined alongside the magnificent, the hard-working Texas man, Texas living man, Jacob Prell. Jacob Prell, how did you like that intro? It's kind of new for me. I'm kind of a basic guy.
We're getting better with the intros. We're starting to find our rhythm consistently, which we couldn't have said before. But now that we're in this rhythm and groove in this new era of the deal with D&J, I think we're just on firing on all cylinders. The brain is working well. We're gonna come up with new taglines. I mean, we're just flowing, DJ. Things could not be better.
Yeah, we're gonna get better, or I'm gonna get better with my adjectives. You're solid with it. I got to work on mine just a little bit.
I will say, last episode, the mock draft episode, I got some feedback from it. Okay, got some feedback here.
Okay,
buddy, he was a swimmer of mine. He now swims with Catawba College, Division II in North Carolina. Shout out Rowan.
Go Catawba College.
Yep.
Out.
I mispronounce it, so he'll text me about it. But he was listening to the pod because he wanted to know who the Patriots were going to be taking at 4, right?
Okay.
He's a big Patriots guy. And he texts me and he goes, Jacob, why in the heck are you and Drew talking about Disney for 15 minutes before we got to the first pick? Because that's what we were doing before you jumped on, because we were about to start the draft. And all we did was get through Tennessee, and you were like, I'm jumping in. And so me and Drew killed the next 15 minutes just talking about the best Disney Channel movie. And bro was like, this is not what I signed up for. I go, it's called good podcasting. Get over it. So.
Oh, goodness. What is the best Disney Channel? What was the consensus?
It varied. It depended on when you stopped watching. But obviously you can't say no to High School Musical, because that's the biggest Disney Channel original movie of all time.
Movie. Okay.
Yes, Disney Channel original movie, so it had to be only on the Disney Channel.
Okay.
High School Musical, Camp Rock. For me, Lemonade Mouth was in there. Obviously, we talked about Luck of the Irish as a classic. Obviously, like Minutemen, another classic one. Cloud 9, so on and so forth. So, like, we were Smart House even got brought up, and that was Drew showing his age a little bit, being, I think, 2 years older than us. But, yeah.
Showing his age 2 years older is insane. That's an insane phrase.
He knows it. He knows it.
A lot of stuff going on, Jacob. A lot more than I think people are geared up for. We just had a huge rush of stuff happen, right? We're still, in the beginning stages of baseball season. We're kind of in the thick of the beginning of baseball season, right? Coming up on it is May 1st now. We are a month into baseball. We just had the NFL draft. We're in the thick of NHL playoffs. We are, coming up to the end of round 1 of NBA playoff basketball. A lot of stuff has been going on. Again, and I think a lot more than people realize. So we're going to hit 2 major things today. We're going to go the NBA playoff updates, and we're going to go MLB. We're going to start with the MLB. And why don't we start from the bottom? As we all do, we all start from the bottom. But it looks like there are some that are not going to make the climb, and the Colorado Rockies, we were just talking a couple days ago, they may have a worse record at the end of this year than the Chicago White Sox did last year. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the Chicago White Sox had the worst record of all time last year.
They did, and the Rockies right now are on pace to smash that. The Rockies are currently 5-25, 15 and a half games behind the first place Dodgers in the NL West. Like, Jeff Passan said it the other day. The Rockies have money to spend. They just don't spend it well. They gave Chris Bryant that huge contract. They have, and the thing about the Rockies right now too, is they also just have, like, besides Zach Veen, who, like, he's a good ball player, but he's not going to change your franchise type of ball player. Um, they just like don't have anybody like exciting coming up in their pipeline outside of Zach Veen. Like this team is going to be a struggle all year, and it's going to be a struggle for the next couple years. And it's just impressive. Like I think what was it? It was I forget what it was, but it was they were 10 games into the season, and the Rockies were already like I think 6 games behind the Dodgers. Like
Wow.
they're on a historic pace for all the wrong reasons. To see where it goes. So I'm interested to see with the Rocky. It's just when you thought the White Sox couldn't get worse, they found a team somehow that could be worse than them, and that to me is just more impressive than what I thought it could be.
I think finding a team that could be worse than last year's White Sox, it's going to happen eventually. Let's just face it. The White Sox may have had it the worst ever, but someone's going to inevitably come along and be worse, right? Not only did they find it, but they found it the next year, which is just insane to think about. I mean, their top hitter is batting 268 right now. 268, the top. Let me go into the pitching stats here. Sorry. Their best pitcher has a 4.75 ERA. 4.75. That's almost 5 runs a ball game, right? And that 0.25 is a lot greater in the scheme of things, right? But 4.75. They've got 1 save under their belt. And their best pitcher has 26 strikeouts on the season, right? And we're how many games in? We're 30-ish games in, give or take. Like, it is rough right now to be a Rocky. If it wasn't rough before, right? I mean, it's been all downhill since what? Tulowitzki left was like really the start of the downfall. They had Carlos Gonzalez there that had some flair. Nolan Arenado, at least brought some flair to the franchise. Trevor Story, like it used to be like a pipeline for some big time players, and I don't see many others coming out. Like you mentioned, Zach Veen has shout out Port Orange, but I don't see where this franchise goes. I think they need a new front office. I don't the managerial moves to keep generational talent. Like I don't even think that you needed to pay Trevor Story. As far as second baseman go, I know he got a large contract. I believe it was for Red Sox. But as far as like generational talents go, that's pennies on the dollar to what some of these other people are getting, and at least people were excited to go to the ballpark to see somebody like that. So it's just miraculous to me that a team can be so cheap and continue to stay so bad, right? Like they're not even offering contracts to the people that keep their organization alive. For instance, the Cleveland Indians or the Cleveland Guardians, they're on one of the lowest payrolls in baseball, but they keep producing and keep bringing up this talent from AAA, or they sign the right free agents at the right price. Like they're good managerial moves to either keep their team in the hunt for the playoffs, if not win their division the last almost 10 years now. And this Rockies team is not taking any hints from anybody, not making any moves to make anybody more happy to be a fan of that organization. So generational run for all the wrong reasons.
And Denver's not a bad place to live either. They have a beautiful ballpark with the mountains in the background. Like I forgot they also have Chase Dollander who got called up, and he's got real promise too. But man, you sit and you look at this in this squad, you just don't feel any hope outside of those 2 young guys. And like I don't really.
Dollander's leading the team in wins
With 2.
and they've only got 5.
and he's got 2 of them.
Exactly.
Like Brenton Doyle has 14 RBIs batted in. Like, that's embarrassing. This team, it's like, I think they have a negative 77 run differential. Like,
Wow.
that is just unfathomable in all different types of aspects. Like, the second worst team in baseball, who are the
Chicago White Sox.
Chicago White Sox, for comparison, have a negative 24 run differential. One thing about Chicago is that at least they're fine. Speaking of Chicago, they have kind of struck some gold with some of their guys here. Like, pitching wise, Shane Smith has a 2.23 ERA. Like, this guy can, the problem is he gets no run support. He's pitching the ball well, at least. He has 1 win with 26 strikeouts. Like, at least the team isn't the worst team you've ever seen in terms of what we're witnessing statistically.
Right.
But, man, it's tough. I mean, let's just keep talking about some of these surprise teams. Baltimore, man, is terrible. Baltimore, the Orioles are terrible. It's amazing how bad they are. And when you think about it, you're like, what do you mean they're bad? Well, first and foremost, they have a negative run differential of 49. So not only can they not score, not only could they not give up runs, but they can't score them either. Right? And it's Gunnar Henderson started the season on the IL for a little bit, so take that with what it may. Right? Cedric Mullins has kind of been doing Cedric Mullins things, batting .278, 6 homers, 20 ribbies. But this pitching staff, man, is bad. Outside of Seguno, this team is bad. Bad. Like, Seguno's the only guy in the starting rotation that has a ERA above 3.
Wow.
Like, it's technically Zach Eflin has him, but he's only pitched in 3 games. Dean Kramer, who's pitched in 6, has an ERA of 7.04. Like, this team is bad. Bad on all. And you think about it, it's like they can't be bad because I'm about to tell you a bunch of names, and we're all gonna think they're studs, right, DJ? Like, I'm gonna list you off their names here, and you're gonna tell me when you find a bad player. Adley Rutschman.
Up and coming.
Cedric Mullins, Ryan Mountcastle, Gunnar Henderson, Jordan Westberg, Jackson Holliday, Heston Kjerstad, Ramon Urias, Ryan O'Hearn, Tyler O'Neill, Ramon Laureano, Gary Sanchez, Jorge Mateo, Colton Cowser, Dylan Carlson. I'm going to stop you right there at Dylan Carlson because he's terrible. But like I just listed, the first 6 bunches of names, you're thinking these guys are studs. And yet, Adley's batting .222, Mountcastle's batting .194, Gunnar's batting .228. Like, this team is just not slugging well either. Like, it's... When you're number one, I will say, like, we kind of knew they were in danger when we saw their number one ace was going to be Charlie freaking Morton.
Right.
After you had Corbin Burns and you kind of were really good with him and you chose not to re-sign him. And you're like, well, we're going to get this guy from Japan who's old. And he's doing well. Seguno's doing well at a 3 ERA. But, man, it's... If you're a Baltimore fan, I think you're incredibly frustrated with your ownership because you were promised for so long that wait till all these prospects get called up. Well, now all your prospects are here, and we're doing jack with them.
Yeah, I think a caveat to that is this is still a very young team, they've got veterans on there and veterans in the roster. A lot of these or some of these people just made their first had their first MLB season last year, right? And I think that's something to keep in mind. Not something to totally throw away. They're big leaguers. They need to produce. Also, this division is not performing like I think some of us thought they were going to. I mean, Baltimore might be bad. They're 5.5 games back, and
We're
a
only a
fifth
month in.
a fifth of
Yeah.
the way in, right?
Is it?
So
Is it? I
there is
guess.
time, and it is shocking that the team has become or is what it is at the moment, especially with the expectations we had going into this season. Like I believe I had the Orioles winning the division
My
this year.
my question to you is, I think I didn't. I think I had the Yankees, but I had the Orioles as a wild card team. My
Right.
question to you is, are we hitting the panic button a little too early on Baltimore, or is it kind of validated given this AL East? Looks like it's going to be a showdown between Boston and New York. And maybe if the Rays or Blue Jays get hot, are the Orioles going to be too far out of contention? Because 5.5 games isn't bad for now. But if
Right.
let's say we talk again in June, right? And we're
Hmm.
looking at the standings and they're 10.5 games back at the pace we're at right now. 10.5 is a mountain to climb. Do you
Yeah.
so?
For yes. To answer your question, yes, it is too early to hit the panic button. You're frustrated. Yes. You want your team to do well, but record is only as like prevalent as how far you are from the top, right?
Yeah,
Like,
agreed.
what did we have? Uh, I think of the AL Central a couple years ago was just god awful, and we had 3 or 4 teams, um, willing to almost to the top of it, to the top of that division, and those teams were bad, but how are you gonna not make the playoffs? Is really what it is, and this team is definitely in contention to make the playoffs, right? If at the All-Star break they fall to that 10 games back, that's a panic button right there. Like something needs to not change, right? Because again, these teams will go through slopes. It's baseball. It's a long season. Um, but that's when you start to sweat about the ground that you have to make up. But if they keep this 5.5 games back, and like, of course, you want to make progress. But if they don't fall too far from where they are now, you know, going into the All Star break, they still give themselves a chance, and they're gonna get hot, right? This is a roster unlike the Rockies and the White Sox that they are going to heat up. They're going to find their groove, and they are going to make up space. Are they going to make it to the top of the division anytime soon? Probably not. But they can't. They get the chance to go out there, you know, and it'll be what it is. But not time to hit the panic button. A little surprising, where they are now. But I mean, look at, for instance, the Braves. Didn't they start 0-6? Didn't they get
Yeah.
swept twice out of? I know we're gonna move on to them here in a little bit, I assume, but they started 0-6 and they made up ground in their third in their division.
I mean,
You know,
it's a perfect segue because I put them down as a list of bad surprises
mm,
because they started the season terrible. Like 0 for 7, I believe it was. They couldn't hit, they couldn't pitch. And obviously, they came back to the median and they're 14 and 16, 6 games behind first. The New York Mets have really jumped and taken a hold of that division surprisingly. I didn't
right.
think they're getting some. We'll talk about the Mets here in a second, but talking about the Braves, I mean, they started off really slow. But the thing is, they started to kind of figure out Austin Riley's getting the bat going, batting 280 with 6 homers. Sean Murphy, 7 homers, batting 250. Ozuna, 283. And then you got the pitching. Excuse me. Now you got the pitching. Spencer Schwellenbach, again, is having a sneaky, very sneaky top 5, top 10 pitching in the NL right now with a 2.87 ERA, but he only has 1 win. Chris Sale is the same way. I will say the problem for Atlanta right now is not starting pitching. It is the bullpen. The bullpen is a big problem for Atlanta. They have a hard time holding leads. It's hard to ask your starters to go seven early in the year, but that's kind of how it's looking like for them. It's a little bit of a struggle to finish some games, but they've caught in a little bit of a win streak here. You know, they took a series against the Cardinals and the Diamondbacks and of the Rockies as of late, and then they take on the Dodgers the first weekend of May, when this comes out, the series will have already happened. But they're starting to get the ball rolling after this very, very slow start.
Yeah, and like I said, just to bring it back to the Orioles, and the reason it is those runs happen. Like, what did we say? They won 2 series. You know, they went two for 3 against Colorado, 2 for 3 against Arizona, 2 for 3 against St. Louis. They swept Minnesota, and then they're right back in the race. Right, the Mets are on a, for lack of a better term, a generational run right now. You know, that has Mets fans excited, and they're hot, and you know they're getting production from people that have not been a lack, but you know, Pete Alonso right now is arguably the MVP frontrunner in the NL, with the type of production that he's giving the Mets. But you know, these runs will happen. These teams will have slumps. These teams will have runs. It's who you catch, when you catch them, and it's really just working as a team. Because I mean, corrections are small in baseball. Like, you don't make major corrections during the year. There's no time to. You know, All-Star break is when you start. You know, this is what needs to happen, or this is what you need to change, and you'll work on that for your off week. But the Braves, I thought, were, compared to our last baseball podcast, I was actually going to put them in a positive, you know, shocker for what did we name this segment? The surprises? It was a good surprise for me because of how they started and where they are. Right, they made up the ground. Like, for a second there, I thought the Marlins were going to be decent this year, and they fell to the bottom of it. You know, it's a false start. It's too early to make all of these panic buttons, except again for the Rockies and
I'm gonna go ahead and jump in. Let's talk about some good surprises here, right? We've been bashing teams. Let's talk about teams that have actually surprised us in the first month of play. I think the biggest one for me is I'm gonna call them the Oakland Athletics, but the Athletics, the A's, 16-16, right? For a team where I really thought they were gonna be bad. But they're kind of holding their own. They're actually 17-15 at the time of this recording, 3rd in the AL West. Like, they got 2 young guys who are playing some of their best baseball of their career right now. Jacob Wilson batting at .331 right now. He also doesn't take a ton of walks either, so that's great for them, right? Tyler Soderstrom, I think he is second in the MLB with 9 home runs, batting .289. He has 24 RBIs. Like, this guy came out on the scene and just went bananas for them. And apparently now the A's are now calling up their number 2 prospect, Gunnar Hoglund, right-handed pitcher. So this team is surprisingly good. Do we contribute some of that to playing in a minor league ballpark potentially in terms of the statistical numbers? Maybe, right? But this team also isn't that bad when you look at it as well. So, like I mentioned the hitting. The pitching isn't terrible either. J.P. Sears and Jeffrey Springs have kind of figured it out. And they have Luis Severino as well doing some stuff. They're not a bad team by any means. Just the AL West is also quite competitive, with the Rangers, who will eventually figure it out, right? The Astros and the Mariners. But to me, when I thought they were going to be I didn't expect the A's to be 2 games over 500 right now. I'm gonna be honest with you.
Not at all. And I kind of like the fact that you brought up, being that they're in a minor league stadium. I mean, I'm not familiar with their average fan attendance.
Still bad
for this. Is it?
Nobody. The thing is, nobody supports what the owner did to move him. So that's the issue.
I mean, they're still averaging 9,836 fans per game. 66% increase from their last season in Oakland.
They're also in.
66% increase.
We're also in Sacramento.
Well, I'm just saying,
I know.
it's going to a baseball game for the Oakland Athletics, which I just think is incredible to think. Maybe it's easier or maybe it's safer to go to. I don't know. I don't know the location of the Coliseum, but but being in a minor league stadium, right? You brought it up as maybe an advantage, but everybody has an advantage. It's not like the A's had a ton of practice time. They had some, but it's not like they're practicing in their own facility all year long or for their career for some of these people. It's amazing what they've been able to do. That is a great good surprise there, Jacob. I like that one a lot.
I think another one that I want to briefly touch upon is also the Mariners in the same division, 18-12. I mean, it looks like the biggest what if we had for this team is they're starting to figure it out pitching wise. Like the pitching staff has done great. Logan, the thing is though, they just got a big hit though. They're losing Logan Gilbert for a period of time. But I mean, you're looking like they got their top four guys, Logan Gilbert, Bryce Miller, Brandon Wu, and Luis Castillo all have ERAs under 3.75. Logan Gilbert, 2.3. Bryce Miller, 3.52. Brian Wu, 3.09. And Luis Castillo, 3.62. And not only that, they're getting quality outings from the bullpen. Trenton Thornton's got 5 holds, and Andres Munoz has 11 saves for this squad. So you're getting some really, really good pitching out of the bullpen on top of this great pitching staff. It also helps that Cal Raleigh's hitting dingers. The offense is kind of coming along. And so I like to think the Mariners are surprising because I didn't expect them to kind of take this hot start and run with it.
No, I mean, I thought we had some pretty high hopes for Seattle going into this year. Maybe not the highest of praise for them, but I thought that they did a splendid job in this offseason, or it looks like they've done a splendid job in this offseason, getting their team prepared for this year, and they're in sync. I mean, it is another competitive, or at least more competitive division than we were both thinking. I mean, they're in the same boat as the Orioles division in the AL East. The AL West is 5.5 games back, or the Angels. I'm not going to sit here and say that's a surprise that the Angels are down, and that lead from the top will be, will shorten. But the Angels have also lost 5 straight games. So that division's a little bit tighter, a little bit more competitive, than I think we were thinking the gap was going to be. Where did we have Seattle fall into anyways? Do we remember?
I think we had them in third because I believed in the Rangers, and I think the Astros will figure it out anyways. And the biggest question mark was the offense because we kind of knew the pitching was going to be good, and we didn't know what the offense was going to be. DJ, do you have another? I have a couple more surprise teams, but I want to hear who you have on your surprise list.
I'm going to kind of go in reverse with this pick as we kind of touched up on them. But the New York Mets, I think, are beating – there's a lot of baseball left, right? And I feel like the Mets generally have this type of run here. They're a team that in the middle or in the beginning of the season, they heat up, they're towards the top. There's a lot of fan, and then it starts to die off. But as of late, they are still scorching hot. Pete Alonso is leading the way for this team, and I think that was somebody who I wasn't particularly thinking was going to be leading every statistical category on offense. 342 batting average, 7 home runs, 28 RBIs, 475 on base percentage, and 38 hits. I mean, he is just lighting it up. And then Francisco Lindor right behind him, 37 hits, 16 RBIs, 298 batting average. Juan Soto, is not producing, but he's not producing as well as I thought he would. He's got 5 home runs, 14 RBIs. He's batting 252 right now. But this team is finding a way to make it work. And these people who are getting limited at bats, like I don't know I'm gonna attempt to pronounce his last name, Jose Azocar, 13 at bats, and he's batting 385. Right. I think that's, those are just numbers, pinch hitter, maybe a fill in, but he's producing when you need it. And it's those little things in baseball when you can fit somebody in there, right? And they produce when their time is called, that really helps a team when the time comes, So this team they're hitting on a lot of cylinders. And you brought up Senga earlier, 1.38 ERA. That's massive, and that's great pitching that the Mets are going to have to hold on to all year long in order to keep up this, this run that they're on. I'm going to go through their ERA of some other pitchers right now as well. You brought up.
I know. I'll save you some trouble. I mean, Taylor McGill is doing some great things. They got a couple guys pitching a little above their weight class at the moment. I think that'll come back down. Like, I think Cannering is another guy that I think can come back down to earth. I think they have is it Grant Hill? I believe he can come back down to earth. Is it Grant Hill? It's Grant something. Are you looking at their pitching?
Yeah, hold on. I'm sorry. Hill. I don't have a Grant or a Hill on here. Griffin Canning, Clay Holmes.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of. I was thinking of the Yankees guy, Clay Holmes. I think some of these guys are going to come back down to fruition, but that's in time.
Right.
Another team, I think the biggest surprise.
I think I know what you're going to say. Hold on, let me guess. Detroit Tigers.
The Chicago Cubs.
Oh, okay.
Chicago Cubs.
Talking about the rival.
Chicago Cubs, 19 and 13. I don't like talking about him, but Kyle Tucker, he was playing at an MVP level early in the year. He's kind of fallen back down to earth a little bit. But, I mean, Seiya Suzuki also is starting to come through with this team. Like, 9 home runs for him, 28 RBIs for Kyle Tucker. But the pitching staff has been the biggest surprise, right? We know about Shota Imanaga and what he's going to be able to do, right? But Shota has a 2.7. Matthew Boyd has a 2.7 ERA, right? They did lose Justin Steele for the year, unfortunately. But, I mean, this pitching staff has been really, really good for them. And it's a little surprising. Like, Colin Ray, I think they've called him up from the bullpen to be a starter right now, and he's got a 1.4 ERA. Right, he has 21.
Oh, did they move him to starter?
I think so for the time being.
Okay.
Julian Merriweather has 7 holds. Ryan Presley has 4 saves. I mean, if they can, Ben Brown has 31 strikeouts. While he may not have the best ERA, right? You got to remember they also just played in a game that was 13-11 and they won. Like, your ERA is going to take a massive hit after a game like that. So the Chicago Cubs are doing it on all different sides of the ball. And the thing is, the biggest question I'm going to see now is if you're doing this with the team you have now, what are you going to do with Kyle Tucker? Because he's basically on a 1-year rental. And I think Chicago would want to sign him, but Kyle Tucker can get a lot of money in free agency for a team that could really use his services. But Chicago's been the biggest surprise to me as team-wise. And Kyle Tucker and Shota Imanaga and Suzuki have been leading the charge for those guys.
Yeah, I'm gonna toss one more team in there just for the funsies of it, and it's gonna be the team that I guess you were gonna pick in the Detroit Tigers, and coming off of last year, right? The AL Central was arguably the most competitive. I think one could make that argument. I mean, the Guardians, excuse me, had a 90 plus win season, and all three AL teams went to the playoffs. Um, and the Twins had just missed out. Like, it was a 14 race to make the playoffs in that division, and I think a 19-12 is up there with one of the best records in baseball for the Tigers. They're seeing production from many people. Excuse me, 1 second. Zach McKinstry on the offensive side of the ball, and I think that's where Detroit has struggled the most lately. Batting 323, but he's not the only one that's seeing all of this production. Spencer Torkelson, Torkelson. Um,
Torkelson.
I already mentioned Zach McKinstry, Thomas Nido, Manuel Margot, all batting over 300 right now. And then closer to the top, Javi Baez is actually seeing some production right now, 296 batting average. Not seeing as many long balls from him, but 6 doubles on the season, 24 hits. That's production that we, didn't think at least to ratio right now, that we were going to see from Javi Baez arguably ever again. So, and then on the offensive side, sorry, I'm scrolling back down here. Casey Mize, I think is a somebody we didn't have on our highlight list coming into the season. He's got 4 wins. Tarek Skubal, he was Cy Young runner-up.
He won the Cy Young last year.
He won the Cy Young last year. Excuse me. He is. Did I have him winning the Cy Young this year?
I think you might have.
I think I may have had him, but yeah, he then picked up right where he left off from last year. 2.34 ERA, and 40 strikeouts. So, and like I said, holds are big, and their bullpen is holding their ground here. So, been in some close games as well, and I think proving to get past those closer games.
I mean, talking about
well.
the rotation, this might be one of the better rotations in baseball. Skubal,
Mm-hmm.
2.34 ERA. Mize, 2.12 ERA. Reese Olson, 3.55 ERA. Jack Flaherty, 3.34 ERA. And Jackson Jobe, the rookie, 3.38 ERA. These guys are pounding the zone. They're getting what they want. They're getting not a ton of runs, and they're getting wins as well. And they're getting quality starts. Everybody out of the starting rotation all has at least a quality start under their belt. And, the Detroit Tigers are much better than maybe we have predicted here. I want to talk about one guy here. Aaron Judge, DJ, is on a historic pace as well. Aaron Judge currently is a Triple Crown leader. He's batting an absurd 427 from the dish with 10 home runs, and I believe he has 32 RBIs.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw a stat today that if this pace continues and he does what he's supposed to, he would be the all-time WAR winner in a season with 16.4, I believe it was, beating Babe Ruth, who I think was like a 14.8. We're watching greatness with Aaron Judge, as much as we don't want to admit it. And it might be his AL MVP for the next God knows how many years, because he is absurd right now. Unbelievable stuff happening from Aaron Judge. I mean, the whole MLB as a whole, there's a lot of surprises. Paul Goldschmidt, second in batting average with 356. Pete Alonso, 343, right? I believe he has 8 home runs, 28 RBIs. Like a ton of that stuff. We've already talked about Tyler Soderstrom. The rookie, James Wood, who I love, by the way. This guy's a stud for the Nationals, who I'm super pumped for the Nationals in the upcoming years. But James Wood, 9 home runs, right? Pitching has been great all over. Nick Pivetta for the Padres has been nothing but pure nastiness. Yoshinobu Yamamoto for the Dodgers, 1.06 ERA, pure nastiness.
Filthy. I mean, talk about. I'm sorry. I'm gonna just quick cut off right there.
Cut me off.
Talk about somebody who's living up to the expectation coming from overseas. Another one. Not only Shohei Ohtani, right? Imagine coming back from Shohei Ohtani's shadow, and then living up with a 1.06 ERA for the best team stacked in baseball.
Roki Sasaki's going to figure it out too. Like Max Fried has a 1.19 ERA at the moment for the Yankees. Hunter Brown is really bouncing back from a very rocky sophomore season. Jesus Luzardo just continues to get better. Everywhere he's gone, he's gotten better. From, I believe it was from the Athletics to Miami now up to Philly. 1.73, and Christopher Sanchez now is another guy to keep your eye on. And obviously, we're on Garrett Crochet watch for the Cy Young. And Hunter Green isn't bad. He kind of got rocked in his last start, but he had a phenomenal start to the year as well. Mackenzie Gore is a strikeout machine right now, along with some of the best in Rodon and Wheeler, Crochet. And I gave some awards here, DJ.
Okay.
I just did a best hitter and a best pitcher. The best hitters for me in the AL was Aaron Judge, without a doubt, and the NL, Pete Alonso. Best pitcher, Max Fried. Best pitcher in the NL, Yoshinobu Yamamoto. Pretty simple. I mean, this team is unbelievable. And I'll tell you right now, too, DJ, this is my last little bit of my notes here because I want to make sure I get these notes in
for sure.
to get these guys the love. Tommy Emmett's playing some of his best baseball. I didn't want him to leave the Cardinals, and look what he's done. Carson Kelly, for a catcher, is batting .360 with 7 home runs right now. Willie Abreu had an amazing start for the Red Sox. Speaking of Red Sox, Christian Campbell, the rookie, is having an unbelievable start. Ben Rice might be the new first baseman for the Yankees long term, which is what they've been looking for. Pete Crow Armstrong, PCA, is finding the barrel. And when he's on base, he's a base stealing machine. We talked about Zach McKinstry, and I want to give a shout out to my guy Lars Nootbaar, really doing really great things for the Cardinals. So those are just some guys I had on my immediate list that I wanted to make sure we touched upon. That these guys are people you should keep an eye on.
I mean, great last bit of notes there. Baseball season, right in the thick of it. Now will be the time to start paying attention. Seeing where your teams are. We're, not as far away as people would like to admit from the All-Star break. Even though we're 1 month in, there is a good bit of time, right? If you're looking at a calendar, there's a good bit of time. But for these teams, like we had mentioned, one being the Orioles and 2 being, I believe it was the Angels, stuff can slip away from you real quick. The season can get out of hand real quick. If you're down 10 games at the All-Star break, you need a 2009 Rays type of comeback to 2009, 2011, something
I
like
think
that.
so, something like that.
One of those 2 years, where they needed a miracle in game 162 to come back from such a deficit. And so it's not impossible. It's not impossible. But this is the time where, you either hunker down and you battle back, or you could fall off the railroad tracks very easy. Speaking of falling off the railroad tracks, we're gonna stay on that rail, but just a slight turn. We're going around the bend to the NBA, and wow, some of these series are just boring to watch. Some of these are exciting, but also not exciting at the same time. And what I mean by that is going to be the Lakers and Timberwolves series, which is that exciting but boring to watch, and the also absolute snooze fest in the Cavs sweeping Miami. I think we should start with the bigger surprise here in the Timberwolves. Timberwolves in 5, baby.
Yeah, I mean, there's two ways to look at this, right? Maybe three. Anthony Edwards is him. He's a
Oh, for
dog.
sure.
Is a dog. Another way you can look at it is JJ Redick and the Lakers are not ready to compete yet at this caliber. And the third way to look at it is Nico Harris might have been right. It's one of, I want to talk about Luka because, like, from a statistical standpoint, we're going to talk about him, and it's like he's unreal. 30.2 points per game in this series, shot 45% from the field and 34% from three. But, man, is he a absolute liability on defense, man. He can't hold his ground. He gets blown by. He and then looks for for something, like he got pushed. Like, there's been too many times, especially when the season's on the line. The game plan is to attack Luka because he can't defend for a full 48 minutes. And even the time he's on the court, we're asking him maybe to be out there for 35 to 40. Do we think that we're getting the best version of Luka? Because when Luka does want to defend, he is a decent to solid defender. We're not doubting the offensive potential of Luka because we've seen it. And for those still listening, the Lakers still won this trade. Having Luka long term is better than Anthony Davis long term. Let's get that out of the way. But defensively, you got to figure out a way to make up for Luka's shortfalls. And a seasoned coach will figure that out. JJ is a little bit too green right now to figure that out. And I thought JJ had a solid series, but there was times where he got out-coached, right? I mean, not only did Ant have 26.8 points per game, Julius Randle also took their lunch money with 22.6 points per game, right? And then you had to answer for Naz Reid and Gobert and Conley, right? And there's one thing when we get to the end of, what we're talking about of these playoffs, because I have a really big note about this first round here, but the Lakers just don't have enough either. Like, your third scorer, we can make the same comparison to the Minnesota Timberwolves, but the Timberwolves have legitimately real depth on their team, which is why they're dangerous. The Lakers do not have depth, and they also do not have a center. So you're asking LeBron to play the 4 or the 5, and that is not his game. And Luka and LeBron need the ball in their hands, but if you can't get rebounds without a center, where are you going to go from here? So the Timberwolves also, say what you want about Game 4 and a potential missed call there, but the Timberwolves were by far the better team. Anthony Edwards was by far the better player. And he was not. And the thing about Anthony Edwards is he's not scared of the legends. He's not scared of LeBron. He's not scared of Luka. He respects them, but he does not care that they are the pinnacle of the sport. Also, can I also say one last thing? This is a soapbox, DJ, and I'll let you jump in here. We are in the playoffs. There's bad blood. I don't want you dapping up the opponent or having laughs during replay reviews. They're trying to, kick you out, brother, and, ruin your legacy. And you're over here talking, covering your hand with your mouth, smiling. No, I want bad blood. I want bad blood. That's what the Clippers in Denver have. They have bad blood. Lakers and Timberwolves, LeBron was don't worry, Anthony, we're going to be friends after this. No, I want your friendship to be ruined because he knocked you out of the freaking playoffs.
No, that's absolutely a great point. I had I will say the pleasure of watching LeBron and Luka in Orlando back in March, and basketball seems so effortless to people like Luka and to Bron and to oh my gosh, I'm forgetting the guy on the Orlando Magic's
Paolo
Banchero, sorry.
Montero.
Basketball comes so naturally to them. But I was expecting an upgrade in performance from, that regular season game that, they seemed like they were casually, just playing ball, right? And I expected the attitude to change when it came to the playoffs, and the demeanor and the sort of level of play to increase, and it did not in this series. I mean, LeBron had 38 in game 4 that he had 38. Um, and the Lakers will have this lead, and then their fourth quarter of play is horrible. The turnovers in the series were inexcusable, right? Especially when it came down to crunch time. And then, the Lakers in this series, I believe, had 2 games where at least 3 people were over 20 points. And I think they lost both of those games. Like, I don't understand.
When you
I mean, yes.
when you look at the stat sheet, I want to cut you off here real quick.
Yeah.
When you look at the stat sheet, the Lakers should not have lost in 5 games.
No.
Like, when we look, like, I'm looking at some of the box scores here, and, like, there's no reason. Okay, this box isn't minimizing. Whatever. Like, when you look at it, like, they got in game 5, they had 3 dudes with 20-plus points. 3 dudes. That should win you a game. And instead they lost by 9. Or no. Lost by 7. My bad. Lost by 7. Like, I'm going to pull up the last game. Game 4. Again, you're looking at this team, and obviously Anthony Edwards has 43 points. That's tough to stop. But again, you got 4 dudes in triple digits from your starting lineup. 17 from Bridges, 38 from Doncic, 27 from James, 23 from Hachimura. But then, like, again, this is what I talked about with the depth, right? Naz Reid gets 12 points off the bench for the Timberwolves. Dante DiVincenzo gets 8, and Nickeil Alexander-Walker gets 5. You know how many points the Lakers got from their bench? Out of 4 dudes, they got 6 points.
Oh.
You can't win ball games without depth. Scoring. Like, outside of Edwards 43, McDaniels had 16 and Randall had 25. But you held Gobert to 5 and Conley to 2. Like, on paper, you outscored their starting lineup, but when they rotated their guys in, you had no answer.
Right. I mean, game 5, you talking about somebody to step up. Rudy Gobert with 27.
Yeah.
I don't know if you snuck that in there, and it went over my head, but Rudy Gobert, how do you let Rudy Gobert put 27 points on you?
Yeah.
I mean, he's arguably a defensive liability too when he gets a switch on him towards the key, right? And if you run the right plays on defense, you can drag him out from underneath the basket enough for somebody to cut in. But Rudy Gobert with 27 points in game 5, the team has been an absolute liability on defense this entire time. Like, I was watching them again. I'm gonna refer to my only time watching him in person. And being like, okay, they're going to step it up. Like, I know LeBron's got another gear, or I know Luka's just casually out here. They don't have much to lose in this game if they waiting at that point, right? And it never swapped. And I think it's something to say about the culture over there. I think LeBron's age has something to do with it as well. And ultimately, I mean, some of these looks that these guys were getting, Austin Reeves towards the end of one of those games, an open look in the corner with the clock expiring, like, he needs to hit that. Like, that is what you train for. And it's not even depth at that point. It's like, hey, hit your practice shot. No, it's not practice, but I know for a fact when you're taking that shot, you're not listening to other people. You don't hear other people in that shot. And I think it's something is wrong with the culture in LA right now. And, maybe LeBron even looked to it the other day. I don't know if you saw that comment about Anthony Davis. that he made.
Yeah, I think that was more just him making a joke about, Anthony Davis voiced about centerless basketball, and then he got traded. They need a center. Like
hmm
I think it's still a necessity to have a center like player on your team to at least funnel to get rebounds, run the ball, and run the offense through. But I don't take a lot of stock into that comment. I think it's just LeBron being LeBron. But JJ's got to go back to the drawing board, and they got to go get some dudes in this draft, or they got to go get some dudes and free agents, because Jackson Hayes is not your answer, and he didn't play a single minute in Game 5, and it was a coaching decision, and you now are out of the playoffs. That's a bad time to make a coaching decision, is when the season's on the line, my friend.
hmm
But it is what it is for the Lakers.
I got one more. I got a question for you with it, real quick. Do you think that this series would be not the Lakers season as a whole, but this series would be different if you swapped Anthony Davis with Luka back? Say that trade never happened. The Lakers and Timberwolves are playing right now. Do you think the Lakers last longer?
No, I don't know, because the thing is, like, Luka gave them 38 and they still lost. Like, the Timberwolves, I think we're going to beat them no matter what. I think the Timberwolves are a very complete team. Granted, I think at times I can run into them with the lack of talent of that complete team. But when you're more complete and have better talent overall than the team you're playing, 9 times out of 10, you are going to win that matchup. Right? If I showed you the two teams on paper, right, in your head, you're going to be like, well, the Lakers should win because they have 2 of the best players in the league. Well, that might be true, but the Timberwolves have the latter part of their team is better than the latter part of the Lakers. Like, Julius Randle is better than Austin Reeves. Rudy Gobert is better than Jackson Hayes, right? We can make an argument for Mike Conley and Dorian Finney-Smith, right? And then we can talk about Jaden McDaniels and Rui Hachimura. Maybe they're equal. Maybe one's better than the other. But, like, I think
How much is that talent gap? Actually?
Yeah, I think the Timberwolves win no matter what. I think whether it's in 5, who knows? Maybe AD stifles the Gobert 27-point game in Game 5, but when you look at it and you're getting 30-plus points from Luka Doncic and you still can't win ball games, like, that's a bigger issue than a single player swap's going to solve.
Fair enough. Moving on, unless you had any other comments, let's talk about the Cavs dominating the Heat. Wow. Talk about a series that, I don't know if it speaks more to the lack of, I don't even want to say talent in Miami, because Miami has talent down there. Maybe it's a lack of structure, but they've got a good coach, and they just got obliterated in this matchup.
I just personally think Cleveland is that good. I think Cleveland is unbelievable this year. The theme that I'm going to harp on for the next couple weeks on this podcast is the fact of complete teams. And when you look at Cleveland, what do you get? A very complete team over there. Evan Mobley. I was doubting him when he came out of college, but this guy has panned out pretty well in the NBA. Jared Allen, right? They're running the 2 bigs down there. Donovan Mitchell, we're still waiting to see if he's actually going to be able to carry them to where they need to be. Max Strus, we know he can get hot from 3, and then, they got Sam Merrill. But they also get points from the bench. Devontae Green, Ty Jerome, DeAndre Hunter are just some name, and they rotated every guy in because they simply crushed them in Game 4. But Darius Garland didn't even play in this game either. I think if I'm Miami, though, I think you have a lot of questions you have to answer about who are you going to build your team around, because there's nobody to really build it around currently. Like, do you build it around Hero? Right? But Hero's not a guy you build around, really. Do you build it around Bam? Right? Do you build it around Wiggins? Davion Mitchell is actually a really solid player for them. But that's also, like, again, not a guy you build around in terms of, like, a complete team. Right? I don't really know where they go from here, unfortunately. I think the Heat culture is dead. I don't really think there's a lot else going on in Miami. And the fact that we're talking about them over what is a spectacular Cleveland team, it's a little disrespectful, but the Heat are the Heat. They've done more with less, and they've figured out ways to win. But I think they have a fundamental problem of who is going to be our next star, or are we going to play complementary basketball, kind of like, again, like Cleveland. Without a true number one, they have multiple stars, but they're not superstars. So I don't really know where they go. It was nice seeing them for a hot second, seeing the white heat, white hot.
Might be a little disrespectful to Donovan Mitchell and your defensive player of the year, Evan Mobley. Not calling them superstars.
I don't think they're superstars. I think they're stars. I don't think they're superstars.
Hey, Mitch?
Who?
Donovan Mitchell?
Yeah, no. Star. Not a superstar.
Not a superstar?
No.
Oh, my gosh.
He always crumbles. He crumbles in the playoffs. Like, he just... Listen, like... I like Cleveland. They're really, really freaking good, man. They're a really good team. They got insane depth. They can give it to you any which way until Sunday, but if Donovan Mitchell is going to be your go-to guy in the late moments of the game, he's not good in the late moments of the game. He's a star, not a superstar.
Oh, that is such a crazy take. He had the game. No, maybe that was Darius Garland from the back end there. I think it was against the Timberwolves.
I think Darius Garland could take the next step up to be a superstar, but not Donovan Mitchell.
Over Donovan Mitchell?
Yeah.
You're insane.
The problem
That
is I've seen too much of Donovan Mitchell. I tried to see it in Utah, and he never could do it. Maybe this year for Cleveland it's different, but I don't see him as a superstar. LeBron James and Luka are superstars, right? Giannis, superstar. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, superstars, right? Again, there's people on the Knicks I don't believe are superstars either. Like, I don't think Jalen Brunson's a superstar. I think he's a star. And I love Jalen Brunson. But he's not a superstar. Steph Curry is a superstar. You gotta be welcomed to the higher echelon of greatness.
And what puts you in the upper echelon of greatness?
What's the one commonality I just gave all those superstars minus Luka? But actually, include Luka in it. They've either have all been they've all been to the finals or have won the finals. That puts you in superstardom. And especially if you have a generational run.
And you think there are what? How many superstars are there in the league then? Because at that rate, I think you just mentioned 6, with the exception of Luka added. I think it's 7.
Well, Kawhi's a superstar. Don't.
Now?
Yeah. Always will be.
Always. No. You are just like a. You don't just get put.
Kawhi's averaging 25. 25.
He's averaging 24.
Okay.
And his team's the 1 seed. He's leading the Cavs.
He's not a superstar.
Why?
Listen, I'll tell you this right now. If he can get the Cavs to the finals, he will then become a superstar. But if he loses to the Pacers in the second round with this 1-seeded team, he's not a superstar.
Okay, what if he loses
Nikola Jokic. is a superstar. You gonna argue with me about that?
Okay, is Anthony Edwards a superstar?
I want to put him. I want to put him up there. I want to because he's nasty. But I'm not there yet. I think he's a star. If I'm going by my logic, he got close. He got to what? I think he got the Timberwolves to the Western Conference Finals or something a couple years ago. I think he's a star.
My brain hurts. My brain hurts. Oh my god!
I think if there's one guy outside of my criteria that could be a superstar, it would be Anthony Edwards. I think Cade Cunningham has the potential to become a superstar too, but he's elevated in the stardom right now. But next year he's got to take potentially the next step. Like, of course, as I say, Jalen Brunson's not a superstar. He drops 40 points tonight.
Did they win?
Yeah.
So they're breaking news. The Knicks move on to play, I believe it's the Celtics, correct? Talk about a matchup. So our Eastern Conference, as of this very moment, is set.
Yes, correct. Listen, I got takes. I don't think Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is a superstar either. You can walk off. Walk off.
Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Is Russell Westbrook a superstar?
No. He's a star. I also hate Russell Westbrook. I hate him and James Harden.
James Harden never made it to a finals.
Yeah, that's why he's a star.
I lied. He made it with OKC.
No, he didn't.
Rookie.
Oh yeah,
yes,
sorry, he did. But I don't put either of them in that stardom, in that superstardom.
That is insane.
I think there's
Anthony Davis.
No.
Oh
no. Anthony Davis has made it. Here's my problem, and this is how I gauge. Is like, for me, it also has to
know your criteria. This is insane. Insane work.
For me, it's eye test too. Like, I think there's guys.
Eye test above everything.
I think there's a echelon and a consistency to what we're watching. I think there's a lot of guys that can make the leap into superstardom potentially without getting to the finals or winning a championship. I think Anthony Edwards has made that leap into superstardom after that series against the Lakers. I think Jalen Brunson is, if he slays the Celtics, he's a superstar. But that's a tall ask. Because I can't deem you a superstar if you can't get out of the second round. It's like the Joel Embiid argument. Do you think Joel Embiid's a superstar? He's won an MVP.
I feel like my criteria for
No.
superstar.
I'm asking you right now, DJ. Do you think Joel Embiid is a superstar?
Right now, no.
Okay,
right now, no. Right now, no.
But he's won an MVP.
People bounce up and down in this level of superstardom. I think social influence has to do with it. Production has to do with it.
But here's my argument too: is I want to see your complete body of work too. Like, I love Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, but he's a free throw merchant.
Brother's averaging like 30 plus points a game.
And how often is he getting to the free throw line, my friend? Is he getting to the free throw line a bunch?
Oh.
All I'm saying is I am
32 points per game.
I am nitpicky with my superstars.
I see that.
If Shai can lead the Thunder to the finals, he will be in superstardom territory. Or even the Western Conference Finals, and he makes easy work of the Nuggets, superstardom. Again, Jalen Brunson, I think, has to slay the beast or has to be putting up 30-plus to try and beat the Celtics to enter superstardom.
Who does?
Jalen Brunson.
Oh. He scored 40 to win to sweep the Grizzlies too. You are something, my brother.
Everybody, listen. Here's one thing I'm gonna say, because this is why we do. We give takes. Sometimes we're wrong. Sometimes we're right. A lot of times we're both.
The comments are gonna go crazy.
I don't care what I don't care what the comments say. When they get bounced again, here's the thing: if you're a superstar, you are going to do everything you can to prevent your team from losing, not disappearing when the moment gets too big. Right? Anthony Edwards, when the moment came there, dropped 43 to get the Timberwolves to win by 3 in Game 4. What I have seen with Brunson in New York is they have not been able to get to the conference finals. And now they got to run through the Celtics. Again, but here's the thing. Brunson can enter that superstardom if he's dropping 35 or 30, or 28 plus every single game and making an impact on the game. That elevates you into superstardom. But there's sometimes Brunson disappears as well. But also, again, the Knicks have a good team with Cat, OG Anunoby, and obviously Mikal Bridges that can really go after this Celtics team. But Mikal Bridges is a star. Jalen Brunson's a star. I don't think Jalen Brunson's a superstar yet. And I love Jalen Brunson. I saw his jersey get retired at Villanova, DJ. If there's anybody that loves Jalen Brunson, it's me. And I don't think he's a superstar. But Steph Curry is still a freaking superstar because he does it every single game. Night after night. Shot after shot.
I'm not going to argue with you over Steph Curry. That's a superstar. Some of those other ones. Jimmy Butler?
We talking regular Jimmy Butler or playoff Jimmy?
Jimmy Butler right now.
Playoff Jimmy's a superstar, but regular Jimmy Butler right now is not. Because playoff Jimmy different. Playoff Jimmy's different, brother.
Draymond Green?
No. He never could. He never elevated himself to a superstar. He's a star.
Defensive Player of the Year, Draymond Green?
No, not because he was too busy. Because he was too busy kicking people in the nuts.
Ugh. Goodness gracious! All right, well, let's take a quick look at these. Wrapping up Cavs Pacers. How are you feeling about it? I want a quick run through of them.
No, before we talk about Cavs Pacers, I want to talk about Bucks Pacers.
Okay. Yeah. Fair enough.
Bucks Pacers. Let's get through the rest of this first round here. First, before we talk Bucks Pacers, I'm going to talk about Celtics Magic because that was a quick series. Jason Tatum again just keeps elevating himself to maybe that upper echelon of a top 5, top 3 player in the league right now.
He is one cold, brother. He is
cold, brother. Jaylen Brown is another guy giving you points. Derek White, the biggest unsung hero in basketball. Peyton Pritchard, 6th man of the year. KP having a difference maker. This Boston team is so complete. So complete. The problem is, they won't be able to sustain it for next year because of the cap hit. But they are so complete that it's unfathomable to see where they go. Granted, I like where the Magic are. I think they have a great young core. They got to figure out some pieces. But that is a very exciting team to watch in the next couple years because they hit on Paolo Banchero, which is always the hardest piece, is to hit on your franchise guy, and they hit big time, which he was the right pick over Chet Holmgren, which I will still die on that sword. Chet Holmgren's been a dog too, but he also is surrounded by a bunch of stars versus Paolo's the only star. Anything to add there before I jump to Bucks Pacers?
I think this Cavs team has got a lot of good pieces. I mean, Paolo obviously being the number one, but when this team is healthy, you got to remember a healthy Magic team. Cole Anthony, he's a dog. I'm missing one more. Jalen Suggs, he's a dog. Some key pieces that didn't play in this series really could have changed, maybe not the series outcome, but made it more difficult for the Celtics. I mean, the Magic kept this series or these games pretty close. A missed shot here and there. A couple. They need a shooter, a pure shooter of anything. And I'm not going to speak it into the will now, and I don't think it's going to happen. But Steph Curry's family lives right here in Winter Park in Orlando. Go, hear me out. I'm just saying it could happen. But
Also,
Magic, great young core.
Also, I just watched a clip of Jalen Brunson hitting the game-winning 3 for the Knicks. So, this Jalen Brunson take's probably going to be a devastating one, but I'm going to stay on it for this season at least.
Ridiculous.
Pacers Bucks. I think the biggest storyline. There's two storylines. One, Tyrese Halliburton heard the noise, heard the comments, and kind of balled out.
Off. Mm-hmm.
He had 17 points per game. He had 11 assists per game, too. Like, it is what it... Indy is also a very solid team. Tyrese is one of the guys. He's a star, but he's not a superstar because he can't... While he did win the final game, it's just like he doesn't average enough points. Sometimes it gets a little too out of hand for him where he tries to force some things. But the Pacers are a really, really good team, and that's going to give the Cavs a ton of fits here. But the biggest storyline is what is the next step for Giannis? Because Giannis in this series was unreal. He averaged 33 points per game with 15 rebounds. In Game 5 alone, he had 30, 20, and 13. A triple-double. There's a lot of rumors out there that Milwaukee has to blow it up. They haven't been able to get out of the first round since, I believe, their 2019 NBA championship, which is crazy to think about. Was it 2019?
21.
21, my bad. 21 NBA championship. Like, are they going to blow it up? What's the next steps? Where do we go? I think Giannis. I think Giannis's time in Milwaukee is done. Unless they have a really solid plan to build around him. Granted, he played most of the year without Dame due to a DVT, and obviously he tore his Achilles now, so the brother can't catch a break. But they just don't have a lot of other pieces to really surround Giannis with. Like, you're going to ask Gary Trent Jr. and Bobby Portis to be his number 2, right? AJ Green's not bad, right? But like Kyle Kuzma's not your answer either. So I think Milwaukee has to really look in themselves and go, we have the pieces of what we need, but what's the best move for business? And I think the best move for business is you will have to move on to Giannis because you're going to get King's ransom for Giannis in a trade. Like, if, let's say, obviously the biggest team that comes to mind is OKC because they have the most capital, but OKC's team is really solidly built, and I don't think Giannis is a guy that can go to OKC because of that. So I really don't
give up plenty of their pieces. Like,
you're gonna have to lose Chet and like half the talent that you have. I truly don't know where Giannis goes because he's such a unique player that needs the ball in his hands, and he's a superstar. But I don't really know where Giannis goes from this, but I do believe his time in Milwaukee is over.
Yeah, I don't have a ton of locations for him to go either. Like, in a trade-wise, like, the biggest team that needs him is LA. And LA doesn't have anything to give him. They can give him Luka, but I don't think that trade doesn't make any sense. No. But it is interesting to see because I don't know. I feel like a lot of teams, they could definitely use a player like Giannis, but what would you have to give up? Indianapolis, maybe the Pacers, but I don't think that's where he would agree to go to.
I don't know. I mean, you look at a team like Miami's one, maybe Philadelphia because they're gonna get a top 5 selection. You got some guys on there that you could probably give up, and I do believe that player that you will give up might have to be Joel Embiid or Paul George. like somebody where you can move their contract, like
But the
it,
production from these people still hasn't even been that great. But
like I don't know. I'm looking at some of these teams and it's like I don't know who gives up who. Does Nico rectify his wrong and get Giannis to Dallas and he gives up the King's ransom to get him? Like maybe so. I don't see Houston doing it because Houston is really trying to build the young core. Same with San Antonio. Memphis isn't going to make a move like this at all. So, like, when you really boil it down, like, there's only a couple teams that realistically could go get Giannis. One of them being Philadelphia. They have the cap space. They have the talent to go get him. But you're going to have to give up, like, 40 you got to give up, like, 5 first-rounders for the next 5 years.
yeah,
Right?
I like.
I
The
just don't.
aspect
I
of
just
going
don't
down
see. I think the ask is too high. Then again, I've thought that was some other players, and yet they got traded. So sometimes we don't know anything. But the clear number one team to me is Philadelphia. Whether people agree with that or not, I'm not quite sure. But it makes the most sense to me.
I'm gonna disagree, but the only caveat I'm gonna have is gonna go to Miami because I feel like they have a little bit more leeway with young players. You can give up Bam Adebayo, right? You're not giving up defense by getting rid of him because you're getting Giannis. You have down low possession then, and if you can keep Tyler Hero in that trade, I think those are two easy people to build or easier people to build your team around while also giving away pieces that you need. Or you can get rid of Hero and you keep Wiggins, and then you have your point guard, um, and Giannis. So I think there are a couple different ways that um, Miami can divvy up their players and their future without overhauling everything. So
Yeah. And I guess the last part for me here is my Memphis Grizzlies got absolutely schmacked by the Oklahoma City
the not
Thunder.
superstar, the not so superstar Shea Gilgeous-Alexander.
Correct. Ja and company. If I'm Memphis, was firing Taylor Jenkins right before the playoffs the correct move? Absolutely not. It was probably one of the dumbest moves that I've seen. Same with Denver and firing Mike Malone, but that team is built to kind of survive that a little bit more than Memphis is. But like this Memphis team, man, like I think they got to blow it up a little bit because this team is a great ability of like they have a ton of really good complementary pieces. Jalen Wells is a really good point guard when he comes back fully healthy. Like Desmond Bane is obviously a star. Brandon Clark has always been really good for us. Marvin Bagley was weird. Jaren Jackson's really good. Like Jay Huff had a great moments with us, and obviously Zach Edey as well, doing what he does best. I don't know if you're Memphis, where do you go from here? Because it's one of those weird things where you like, is the team good enough to get to where you want to be, and is Ja the right guy? I still believe Ja's the right guy, but Ja's got to develop some other things. I do think he's got to cut out a bit of the antics part of his game, but I do think Ja, when he figures out a team, is really good offensively. I'm not totally against where he's going in that realm, but this new European coach that they got, who they say is the next like Rick Pitino in terms of like basketball, and he's going to revolutionize some things. Like they better hope they're right, because if not, firing Taylor Jenkins after 6 out of 7 years of really steady performance, it's going to be hard for what is already a very small dedicated fan base in Memphis. But it's just like it's tough. It's a tough watch with the Grizzlies, and I just couldn't watch this playoff series because I knew we were going to get smacked. But I don't know where Memphis goes from here, but only time will tell.
Yeah, no, I think Memphis has a good young core to build around, and with the right coach, I mean, they led to an 8 seed, and right for being swept. I mean, two of these games, the last 2 games were quite competitive, right? So there's not nothing to build on, right? when your back was against the wall, your team fought harder. They were closer games. Still lost, but I think there's something to be said. Whether it was, hey, we're not going to take all the hate that we're getting, or we're better than what our record is, or um, you know, maybe Oklahoma City wasn't trying as hard. I don't know. But this Memphis Grizzlies team does have a good future ahead of itself, given the right person is uh, leading that team. And again, whether firing that head coach before the playoff run was going to change any of these outcomes is hard to tell. But if this head coach works out half as well as they think he is, I think Memphis has some future to look forward to. Do we want to very quickly run through the two matchups we already have in the Eastern Conference? Maybe give a prediction and get out of here.
Yeah, I mean, when this episode airs, there'll be 2 games into the series, but we can talk about it.
It is be game 1. Well, no, it'll be game 1.
When's game 1?
Game 1 for Cavs Pacers is on the 4th. So these games won't have started yet. So, but the other 2 series will have.
But when the episode airs, DJ, next Friday.
Oh, this is airing on Friday. Okay.
Unless you can get it out earlier than that.
I was gonna try to get it out tomorrow night.
I already have our episode scheduled.
Monday.
If you can
enough breathing room.
If you can turn it around by Monday, that should be fine.
Is that enough breathing room?
I would think so, as long as, I can do some social clips, but
Well, I can put clips out. If I can get the clips tomorrow, I'll edit them before this week, and I'll just try to have everything ready to shoot out of here. I mean, ideally, maybe even Sunday night. But if your other podcast host,
let's do Monday morning, because our podcast tomorrow will be fine, and then it won't get cannibalized on Monday, because then it will be a full different news cycle. So yeah, Monday's fine.
Okay, so let's briefly run through these 2 series real quick.
Yeah.
All right, ready? We're going in. Jacob, we got two Eastern Conference, series. Round 2, the Eastern Conference games are going on. You got Cavs, Pacers, Halliburton versus, I guess, the field right here. Pascal Siakam, Tyrese Halliburton. You got Garland, Mitchell, and Allen. What do you think of the matchup? And how many games?
Yeah, I think this is going to be a really good matchup. I think we're going to see a lot of. Yeah, DJ, I think this is a really good matchup. I think we're going to see a lot of really good basketball being played. I think we're going to see, again, some guy's going to elevate their team. Who knows who that's going to be, right? Can Mitchell elevate himself into my superstardom rankings? Can Halliburton do the same thing, right? But the thing is, this Cleveland team has been so good for so long, so consistently. I don't see where the hiccups could be or where the mistakes could come from. And the way they are now at home with their new bells and whistles from an in-game side in terms of presentation and the Cavalanche. I think I'm going to take Cleveland in 6. I think Indy gets 2. I think they get 1 at home, maybe 1 in Cleveland, like in Game 5, to try and, survive, right? But I think it's too much Cleveland for Indiana to survive in this series, especially with the way I think Halliburton, and my worry for Indiana is, where do the points come from if Halliburton goes cold? And, is that Pascal Siakam? Siakam's really good, man. I'm not doubting Siakam. But is that really really who we want to rely on when it's crunch time, when we need to go get a bucket, Siakam's averaging 20 points a game on the season. But again, this is just me talking out loud with Indiana. I'm just not incredibly confident in them to pull off this upset against arguably one of the best offensive teams we've seen in the NBA in a long time.
Yeah, I think I'm right there with you. I will give Cavs in 5. I think Indiana steals 1. My biggest argument for that is, I mean, those Heat were down and out, but I mean, 58 points. And still scored 118 points without Darius Garland on the floor. Uh, I think that's a scary sight to see with production from everybody. Donovan Mitchell leading the way. Donovan Mitchell is a superstar. I'm sorry. Maybe not in your book. In my book, he is a superstar. Siakam being the season leader in points for this team, I think says a lot. I don't think Halliburton is a. I don't think Halliburton's ready for this level of playoff basketball. At least not against a team like this. I think the Bucks were a good competitive matchup. I just think that the Bucks are lacking tremendously, and that's why they were able to move from this. And Halliburton's no scrub. Don't get me wrong here, but I like you think that this Cavs team gives too much on both sides of the ball for the Pacers to keep up with. So I've got Cavs in 6. Cavs in 5. Now, arguably the best matchup of possibilities right now is the Knicks and Celtics. What a matchup! I think this is superstar basketball at its finest. Give me your. I mean, we Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Derek White, KP. You've got Jalen Brunson. You've got oh my gosh, the names just keep always slip me right here.
Mikal Bridges.
Mikal Bridges, Cat. The names just keep coming off. My brain is lagging at the moment, but superstar matchups here. It almost feels like the energy is going to blow up these two cities.
Yeah, I mean, Boston and New York, they just hate each other. And it's not just Red Sox, Yankees. They just hate each other so much. This series is going to be cinema in terms of the fans, things we're going to get. But I think it's too much Boston. I think Tatum is really elevating himself into this conversation of he is the best player in the league. Jaylen Brown is always so consistent. Derek White, we've talked about again, just this epitome of the unsung hero. Drew Holiday is great defensively, and I think Drew Holiday is going to be guarding Jalen Brunson. So that's even now again, this is where the superstardom conversation comes from Brunson is Drew Holiday is our best defender. Can you still get 25 plus from what your team's going to probably need from you, given Thibodeau doesn't sub and doesn't rotate players, but also you don't have a lot of rotational depth outside of Josh Hart. So you're going to need your starters to go get you the points. And I think this team really, on paper, matches up really well with Boston because it's Cat against Porzingis, right? It's Mikal Bridges, probably going to be matched up against Tatum. I think OG Anunoby is going to probably be matched up with Derek White. And then, of course, it doesn't give me what I want in terms of players. That's so great. Thank you.
I mean, I'm just to bounce off of you real quick. Brunson is going to have an opportunity here if Drew Holiday is unable to play. He's on a game-to-game right now. Porzingis is also, kind of I don't want to say he's definitely not on the injury report, but he is a liability on the injury side. But did you find what you were looking for?
Yeah, it's Cameron Payne. I think on paper, this Boston team, New York matches up incredibly well with them. But I think the talent gap, like we've talked about, I think on Boston is too great because they, outside of the Brunson Drew Holiday matchup, every single player for Boston is better than New York's players in a head-to-head matchup.
Mm.
And when that happens, 9 times out of 10, like we've talked about, they will come out on top, barring something crazy. And not only that, like you can rotate in Peyton Pritchard and Luke Cornett. Like the rotational pieces for Boston are also incredibly solid, and the foundation of where they are at too. Like I don't really see. We forgot to mention Al Horford, and then there's Sam Hauser, and Torrey Craig can even get some minutes, and Bailey Shireman. Like this team is tough, man, because it's like if they start the two bigs of Porzingis and Al Horford, like Cat's got to take on one, and if they don't match it up, like then you have a matchup problem, potentially, and I don't really know where you go. On here it says Drew Holiday did not play in Game 5, or in Game 5 for the Celtics. So if it's not Drew Holiday, then Brunson's getting guarded by Derek White, and again, outside of Brunson on Derek White, I think everybody else on Boston is better than their individual matchups. So I'm probably going to take Boston in 5, to be honest with you. I think New York is going to crumble. I think Brunson's going to have a really hard time scoring. This Boston team knows what it takes now to get to the finals, to survive this. And I just don't think the Knicks have enough depth, and Jalen Brunson's held up by ankle tape. I just don't see them surviving Boston, because I don't think they're going to win in Boston, and I think they're going to lose one in New York. And I think that's all she wrote for the New York Knicks. And you're just looking at yourselves again like, what do we have to do to beat the Boston Celtics? And unfortunately, it's to have two of the best players in the NBA, better than Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown.
5 was a bold take, and I can see where you could come up with that number based on like the difficulty that the Knicks had against Detroit and the fits that they gave them. I do think that the Detroit team is up and coming and very, very sneaky good. So sneaky good. But I like the matchups. I mean, at least depth wise as well. I mean, you can put Mitchell Robinson on an Al Horford. You got PJ Tucker in there that can give you some points. Josh Hart, I don't know if he's in the starting rotation at the moment, but he's a solid role player if you need him to come off the bench. Miles McBride, they're not equal matchups to people coming off the bench, and I'm not going to sit there and say that, but you need all pieces to go your way in order for Boston or New York to even get through this series. So I like a lot of what you said. I do think Boston is the better team in most matchups, maybe all of them with the exception of Porzingis and Cat. I may like the Cat lineup better, but I think this series goes longer. I think it goes 7. I think Boston's going to win. I've been watching Jason Tatum over here in Orlando. Gosh, man, it is effortless basketball, right?
Yeah, I just don't see how you get, like, even when they lost this game to to Orlando, like, it wasn't, hold on. Kara called. Like, it took everything for Orlando to beat them in Game 4 to send it back to the Garden. Like, Boston at home is like nearly unstoppable, and I just think Jason Tatum's playing his best basketball, and I do believe Jalen Brunson's going to come back down to earth, and I think they're going to really, really struggle with the cards laid in front of them in New York. And the thing is, this New York crowd's going to be so hyper. They're going to be like, oh my God, take a look at this. Bing bong. Like, and the only thing being in their bonks is their ride back to out of the playoffs. So,
I don't
yeah,
know.
I don't see 7. I see 5 or 6 maximum is 6, but I don't see 7. I don't
I
see
think
7.
I mean, the Magic held the Celtics to pretty close matchups in some of these games, like 100, 109, 93, 95, 107, 98. That's 3 straight games. And, Celtics blew them out in game 1 and game 5. But those 3 straight matchups, I mean, it's young core issues. And this Knicks team, for a change, is a veteran roster for the most part. This is an experienced NBA team, and yes, they can make mistakes, and yes, the stakes can be too high for certain people. But I think this Knicks team has some dogs. I think they're going to fight harder. Possibly, I think they were underprepared for the Pistons, as I would think most would be. But I think it goes 7. I'm still picking Boston though. Jason Tatum is the effortless. You talk effortless basketball. Like Ant is good at basketball, right? And he reminds me, if you're watching like young MJ clips, right? Everything is kind of that, everything's dramatized. But watching Jason Tatum play basketball is like hot knife through butter. It is just smooth. And not that really has anything on the outcome of the game, but I'm just in awe in the way he plays basketball. So, with that being said, that wraps up our MLB update and NBA updates. Jacob, any final thoughts there, buddy?
Jalen Brunson and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander are not superstars.
Flipping that, posting that comment alone, and telling people to argue. Please leave a like, a comment, subscribe. All platforms here. He has been Jacob Proyle, Texas man. Currently, Texas man. I have been DJ McCatherine, and thank you for listening to The Deal with D and J.